My name is Julian Relf. I work in business development with MedEnvoy, and I've been with the company since it started in 2020. My background is almost 30 years in medical devices, but these last few years have been in this newly developing regulatory field. We often get questions about the role of the regulations in business these days. One of the common ones is actually explaining the role of the regulatory importer in the context of MDR and IVDR compliance. The first thing I'm going to do is actually pick on that name, regulatory importer. I am calling it that. The official term of the economic operator is the importer. This often causes confusion with manufacturers, so to easily differentiate between the regulatory importer and the physical importer, i.e. the entity that physically handles goods and moves goods from A to B, I class it as the regulatory importer. The regulatory importer is responsible for ensuring that medical devices and in vitro diagnostic medical devices, or IVDs, imported into the EU and into Switzerland comply with the applicable regulations. So for the EU, this is the MDR 2017-745 and the IVDR 2017-746. For Switzerland, it's the MEDO and the IVDO. So each area has its own regulation, but in reality, they're pretty much mirroring each other. The importer must verify that devices are correctly CE marked, accompanied by the required documentation such as EU declarations of conformity, technical documentation, for example, and registered in the relevant databases where they are up and running. So for example, UDAMED database, it is optional at the moment to register products there, but mandatory to register the economic operators and the actors in the chain. The regulatory importer must also ensure that manufacturers have fulfilled their obligations regarding post-market surveillance and vigilance. Another question we commonly get is, how do post-market surveillance, vigilance and traceability contribute to maintaining device compliance in the EU and Swiss markets? Post-market surveillance involves the ongoing monitoring of medical devices and IVDs after they've been placed on the market to ensure continued safety and performance. Vigilance refers to the process of detecting, reporting and evaluating incidents and serious incidents related to devices. And traceability allows for the tracking of devices throughout their life cycle, facilitated by the Unique Device Identifier System, or UDI. So how do you know as a manufacturer that you're compliant with the necessary requirements, whether MDR or IVDR? The Medical Device Regulation, the MDR, and the In Vitro Diagnostic Regulation, the IVDR, and the equivalent regulations in Switzerland are a set of regulations that govern the production and distribution of medical devices across those territories. These came into full effect with the MDR in May of 2021 and the IVDR the following year in May of 2022, after a transition period from the previous MDD, Medical Device Directive, and IVDD, the IVD directives. The regulations aim to provide a high level of safety and effectiveness for medical devices and IVDs being produced or supplied in the European Union and Switzerland. And I'm now going to go through some of the key requirements of those regulations. The first one is a stricter pre-market control. For this, manufacturers must provide more extensive clinical data to demonstrate safety and performance. The next one, post-market surveillance. This is once a product has been placed on the market, manufacturers are required to actively monitor the safety and performance of those products and report any incidents to the necessary bodies, including the authorities. So, unique device identifiers, UDIs and UDIDIs. Devices must have a UDI. This is to improve traceability and facilitate the recall of faulty devices. The UDAMED and SwissDamed databases. Manufacturers must be registered on those databases. The devices are not mandatory to be registered yet. It's optional with the EUDAMED database, but with the SwissDomed database, that element of it isn't up and running yet. However, both of these databases are platforms for sharing information between national competent authorities and the European Commission. The next one is enhanced transparency, where there's a greater emphasis on making information about medical devices and IVDs available to the public, including summaries of safety and clinical performance. Under the new regulations, many devices have been reclassified. Some devices have been reclassified due to higher risk classes, which means that they are subject to more stringent controls. The next one is the notified bodies. The role and requirements for notified bodies, which are organisations designated to assess the conformity of certain products before being placed on the market, have been strengthened. Another one is the economic operators. The regulations define different roles, such as manufacturers, authorised representatives, importers and distributors, each with a specific set of responsibilities to ensure compliance within the regulations. The next one, clinical evaluation and investigation. The MDR and IVDR require a more rigorous clinical evaluation and, if necessary, clinical investigation, particularly for the higher risk classes of devices. Technical documentation is now key. There is an increased demand for detailed technical documentation to support the safety and performance claims of the devices throughout their expected lifetime. The quality management system. Quality management systems have become much more important. Manufacturers must have a quality management system in place that complies with the relative regulations. The last one for this section is the person responsible for regulatory compliance, or the PRRC. And manufacturers and authorised representatives must have at least one person within their organisation responsible for ensuring compliance with the requirements of the MDR and the IVDR. Compliance with the MDR and IVDR is mandatory for manufacturers who wish to market their products on the European and the Swiss markets. Non-compliance can result in penalties or prohibition of marketing and distribution of the product within the markets. Sometimes we're asked to elaborate on the role of the economic operators and their requirements under the MDR and the IVDR. The economic operators include the manufacturer, the in-country representative, the importer, and, if applicable, the distributors, and each has roles and responsibilities under the regulations. Sometimes these roles and responsibilities overlap, sometimes they are unique to that economic operator. These responsibilities include ensuring compliance with the regulations, maintaining conformity of devices and cooperation in corrective actions, and keeping a register of any complaints. These are just a few of the questions that we have. There are many more, and we can deal with those in future videos. You can use the link around this video to access our contact form on our website, and we can address your specific questions or complaints one-on-one.